So we have Keir Starmer, UK Prime Minister, other leaders of Europe, Justin Trudeau. They're really trying to do everything they can to get the world into a global conflict. And they're doing this behind the veil of keeping peace, at least a strong, secured peace, by being much more aggressive towards Russia. We're talking about them saying they're going to put boots on the ground in Ukraine. Keir Starmer, you're going to see this in this clip. He's going to be talking about putting UK planes in the air over the Ukraine. Justin Trudeau from Canada is going to say everything is on the table here. So just as Donald Trump is starting to pull away from being more involved, these European leaders are now pushing into and more militarily involved. It's as if when they saw what happened in that Oval Office with Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, when they were adamant that we are only pursuing peace and peace alone, a negotiated deal to end this war, to end the killing. We're not looking at continuing this engagement, that these leaders are now doubling down on their efforts to create an even bigger conflict. And worse than that, they're trying to pull the United States back into this. These European countries and Canada and whoever else decides to join them in this effort are completely and overwhelmingly ill-equipped to handle any of this. And so what they want is they want the United States to join them in this. And I believe the United States should do something shockingly different than what they are expecting. I will share with you what I think the United States should do that is maybe the complete opposite of what they would be expecting. After this clip, check out what Keir Starmer says about this in his own words.
First, we will keep the military aid flowing and keep increasing the economic pressure on Russia to strengthen Ukraine now. Second, we agreed that any lasting peace must ensure Ukraine's sovereignty and security, and Ukraine must be at the table. Third, in the event of a peace deal, we will keep boosting Ukraine's own defensive capabilities to deter any future invasion. Fourth, we will go further to develop a coalition of the willing to defend a deal in Ukraine and to guarantee the peace. Not every nation will feel able to contribute, but that can't mean that we sit back. Instead, those willing will intensify planning now with real urgency. The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting. But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong US backing. We're working with the US on this point after my meeting with President Trump last week. And let me be clear, we agree with the President on the urgent need for a durable peace. Now we need to deliver together.
That statement at the end there, he is trying to manipulate Donald Trump with that. The type of thinking this man's pushing is the kind of stuff that puts the world back into a global conflict that we have no business being in. Over what? Ukraine? Ukraine is a notoriously corrupt country with leaders who are essentially been dictators. And they've done things that are fraudulent. They've shelled their own people. This is historical fact. They've outlawed free speech. They've ended their own elections now under Zelensky. They've been bombing eastern Ukraine for 11 years now. Their own people. They outlawed the Russian language, at least some legislation to undo it. Nationalistic movements took place. They killed their own people to try and stop this. Vladimir Putin had to sit back and watch NATO coming closer and closer and reaching its own borders, trying to put Ukraine, NATO. It's a Cold War military alliance. It'd be like if Russia was forming a military alliance with Mexico. You think the United States would be happy about this? But somehow so many people have a blind vision. And again, this is not to say that Putin is the angel here. He's not. I'm going to tell you what I think the United States should do. But I'm going to share that after Marco Rubio shares some clarity of thinking in what the Trump administration is approaching this with. Check it out.
No one here is claiming Vladimir Putin is going to get the Nobel Peace Prize this year, or that he should be the Man of the Year of the Humanitarian Association. What we're arguing here is he has a very large country. They're in full war footing. They're cranking out weapons now at a war footing pace, and we need to figure out, is there a way to get them to stop the war? And the only way you're going to do that is to get Russians engaged in negotiations, something the Europeans haven't been able to do, the Biden administration wasn't able to do or didn't even try. That's the goal here. It's that simple. Can we try to sit with them and figure out whether there's anything, what are the Russians' demands? Under what conditions would the Russians be willing to stop this war? And as I said, we don't know what those are because we haven't talked to them in 3 years. That's the singular goal here, is to try to bring about an end to this conflict, and it begins by getting them to the table. Ultimately, like any truce, like any peace agreement anywhere in the world, those things will have to be enforced, they'll have to be enduring, there'll have to be safeguards put in place. Everybody understands that. But it begins with the first step, and that is engaging them to see if it's even possible. Because if it's not possible, then what we're looking at is a protracted stalemate with thousands of people dying, billions of dollars pouring in, and more death and destruction. And that's not something the president wants to be a part of. He's made it very clear.
You think what Keir Starmer just said about putting boots on the ground and planes in the air is something that leads to a negotiated end to this war? No, it only increases the conflict. So this is what I'm thinking the United States needs to do. I think right now, we're the only country that has really been bolstering up the Cold War military alliance known as NATO, meaning it's our money, it's our funding that keeps it going, and it's our military strength as well. Without the United States of America, NATO is nothing. NATO goes from a lion to a house cat once the United States of America pulls out. I think it might be time for the United States to end our involvement with NATO. We pull out of NATO because, as far as I'm concerned, NATO is not a peacekeeping organization anymore. All it is an antagonistic, militaristic organization at this point that continues conflict flowing, that does not meet at the table in any real way. And obviously, they have an agenda to keep the war machine running for some reason. They have an agenda to cause global conflicts. And the United States needs to be a leader and say, our agenda is not that. Our agenda is not aligned with what you're doing. And if you want to go that direction, you go that direction. But we are not. The United States, historically, we've made mistakes. But the United States has also had many great successes as it's existed as a country. Less than 300 years, but we've had some great successes. When it comes to global conflicts, that is one of the areas where the United States has had some of the greatest successes. And I think one comes right now, where the United States says, no, we're on the side of peace, and that's what we're going to do. And I think if the United States doesn't join this nonsense that is being spewed out there by these other leaders, I think that us alone doing the right thing could actually still end this thing, because the Europeans don't have the money, nor the military will, nor might. Do you think people in UK are going to want to go into the Ukraine and fight in the Ukraine? They're not going to want to do this. That's why Keir Starmer said the willing. He's trying to the willing. Ukrainians don't even want to fight this war. If you haven't seen the videos, I'm not going to show them, but they are forcing conscripts to the front line. J.D. Vance was not lying. They have military individuals going out and kidnapping men to put them on the front lines because they don't have the people to fight this war. We are literally putting young men on the front lines to get killed right now, rather than just ending this. What do you all think about this? You know who's going to end up really paying for this thing once the global conflict happens? The United States of America. You know who's really going to have to bail them out once they screw this thing up again? The United States of America. And everyone wants to hate on the United States of America. But when these European countries flame this fire up to something that gets out of control, oh no, we don't know what to do now. We thought boots on the ground and planes in the air was going to solve the problem. But all of a sudden, now we have a bigger fire on our hands. Who's going to have to deal with that? This is one of the reasons why the United States of America had to end its isolationist policy. From our founders, the United States was always had this isolationist policy. Doesn't mean we always handled it perfectly. There were certainly many times in history where mistakes were made on that. But when it came to these global conflicts, we generally did not want to get involved. But we had to clean up the mess every single time. We had to clean up the infrastructure. We had to pump the money in. We had to put our military boots on the ground. And the same thing is going to happen here. These leaders messing it up. But we have a strong leader in the Oval Office who is saying no right now. These other leaders would be smart to take a look at this and say, wait a second, let's step back. We haven't gotten this thing right too often in the not too distant past. Maybe we should get off our high horse, lower our hubris, listen to some common sense. What do you all think about this? These world leaders are out of their minds. It's easy for them to pretend like they're strong and like they actually have the military might and money to handle something like this, when the United States is going to clean up their problems. And then after the United States cleans up their problems, they sit there and they talk about the United States like we're the worst thing in the world. Love to hear your comments on this one. Leave them below. I'll catch you guys in the next one.